The Real Ultimate Fighter Season 29 finale, we get it. Now, do you think Bryan Battle has to go home, look at the display case, shine off the trophy, bring it in, and if he loses, does he have to give it to Tresean Gore?
I think this should be like an AJ Styles Kurt Angle match where it is for the gold medal. So yeah, winner takes all of this.
It's for the gold medal, and on a week where two former UFC champions win the Royal Rumble. Did I watch it? No, but it was all over my Twitter timeline last night. We have Tresean Gore, Mr. Vicious, taking on Pooh Bear, Bryan Battle. Now, Matt, I think Pooh Bear is the worst nickname in MMA. If it's not that, then it's Daywalker from Rashad Coulter, and I'll take that to my grave. But coming up this weekend, Tresean Gore is an interesting prospect because you can see it up on screen. Is he 4-0? Do we count the 3-round fight that he had against Gilbert Urbina? For the sake of our graphic, we do, but you could also say that he's 3-0, taking on a Bryan Battle who the same thing applies. He had that win over Andre Petroski that was a 3-round fight, and then he ends up in the finale. Now, in that finale, we talked about it because it happened, and Gilbert Urbina gets the opportunity because Tresean Gore had a knee injury. He falls out of the fight. So the guy that Tresean Gore knocked out gets to fight Bryan Battle. And in that fight, the guy that got knocked out and Gilbert Urbina fighting for his family and his two brothers that were, UFC adjacent, he knocks down Bryan Battle. He stuns him twice. He takes him down a couple times in the first round. Gilbert Urbina looked great. And then in the second round, Gilbert Urbina had a hard time like he did in the fight against Tresean Gore because his chin just isn't all the best. And in that fight, he really did struggle. Battle gets the back, Battle gets the submission, and he gets the win. And at the end of it, Battle gets back up, and you couldn't really see it from the camera angles, but he gets up, and he is cut open to bits. So, a big-time win for Battle. Gore obviously spent some time on the shelf, but he gets the opportunity in the UFC. We don't often see fighters that are 3-0, 4-0 getting a shot here. I mean, are you surprised that they ended up making the fight? Because I have to say I'm not.
No. Well, no, because we both watched The Ultimate Fighter. Strange question, to be honest, Craig, because here's the thing. We know what we know about Tresean Gore, but this wrestling background, and when you see how good he is in The Ultimate Fighter and just how dynamic his whole game is, for a guy who is only, 3-0, 4-0, depending on who's ranking you or whose resume you want to listen to, this should be a great fight, though, because Bryan Battle, to me, is kind of where you would think a guy is in his career when he is coming off The Ultimate Fighter. Not a finished product, but still a guy who's far enough in his career to where you know what his strengths and weaknesses are, and I honestly can say the same thing about both guys, and that's why this fight is so fun, because for Bryan Battle, and you pull this up right now, he has an extensive amateur career, but also a really good professional one too, and with Battle, I like the fact that he does fight like a guy who has a lot more experience than he does, although he does eat damage in some fights, and that's not often something you would attribute to a guy who has good fight IQ. He is a great example of someone who can use his opponent's weaknesses against them. I always call this the Ally Quinta effect, because Ally Quinta is not a good enough fighter to truly beat Kevin Lee or to have a close fight with Khabib Nurmagomedov. It's just his style, for some reason, against wrestlers is so tricky that sort of his niche of skills works very well against those types of fighters. With Bryan Battle, if you are a really good wrestler, he will play that game with you, don't get me wrong, but normally he can rely on his own cardio and his own ability to get his back off the cage to kind of win out in some of those exchanges. Whereas with Tresean Gore, if he gets in on a lot of those spots, he's going to finish that takedown 9 times out of 10.
Which is crazy, because I mean, when I look at both of these guys, if you look at it for Bryan Battle, extensive amateur record, as you had mentioned, he fought Impa Kasanganay as an amateur and out-wrestled the heck out of him. He fought Cody Brundage, who's in the UFC, and beat him as well. So he was also one of those guys that didn't have an extensive background in like Muay Thai or wrestling or anything. He just became an amateur fighter and was pretty good at it. And now look at him. He's in the UFC and he won the Ultimate Fighter. Now, if you do look at it for Battle over on that season of the Ultimate Fighter, beats Cameron Lachinov, a guy who had spent some time over with Bellator, beats Andre Petroski, withstands a little bit of that early adversity. But if we know anything about Andre Petroski, he struggles in the second round. Didn't against, 4-2 Hu Yao Zhang or 3-2 Hu Yao Zhang, but he does normally struggle in second rounds. Battle's able to win out, gets a submission in that one. And I look at it, Matt, in this one, Tresean Gore's way faster of a striker. Way faster of a striker.
And his footwork, too. I would just say he's faster in general.
His footwork is very good. The trouble is, I look at Battle when he strikes, and his striking defense, he does one thing. I wrote it down. He has this weird part about his striking defense where when you start to strike against Battle, he puts his left hand up by his ear and he just kind of holds it there. And he keeps his right hand here and he rolls out of it like a rampage. He does roll out of it. But at the same time, he rolls into a lot of punches when he does it.
He does, but I do look at it very similar to you. It's a skill that if he is able to develop to 100% capacity, he will have sort of striking defense like a Rampage or a Dustin Poirier, to where you can have the high guard but still have a wide enough range to where you don't really miss out on your own eyesight and your ability to slip shots. But like you said, he is young in his career, and those skills do take a long time to really refine. And against a guy like Tresean Gore, like, your one mistake could be your last because he is so quick on the inside and on the outside. And I do think speed is such a big key to this fight because battle striking isn't terrible. He is very upright with his stance. He does plod forward a little bit, but it's not like his striking is a net negative. I just look at him to where, let's say he does stick the jab out and he is slow at bringing it back and he leaves his head wide open. That's when Gore is going to be able to jump in almost like a Chad Mendez, fake low, go high, and one big shot could be the last one of the fight.
And it is an interesting one because you can see it for Battle. He does have the reach advantage. He is so much more volume oriented than Tresean Gore. It's not even funny. And that's the thing that I really got out of doing all the tape study on both these guys. If you watch Gore, his fight against Ryder Newman, I mean, he won it, but like he won it. That was about it. Newman tried to go for, a late takedown in the first round, wasn't able to get it. The second round, not a whole lot happened. Gore was able to outpoint him. That was about it. And the craziest part about it is Tresean Gore trains out of American Top Team Atlanta with the Lima brothers and so on and so forth. I mean, who else is trained? Rafael Sunsau's trained there in the past. There's a lot of fighters that have gone through those doors. But on that season, he was on Team Ortega, and Tiki Gosen the whole time is just yelling at Tresean Gore to do anything. And he doesn't really do anything. And then in the second fight that he has, taking on Gilbert Urbina, that was the finale before the finale. It was the last episode of the show for the season. And he goes out there and he does kind of wait for the blitzes. He's able to counter. But again, when he lands his left hand, check left hook, lands, drops Urbina, throws a power jab, drops Urbina. Gilbert Urbina's chin has been checked a lot. Not even on The Ultimate Fighter. Not even by Gore or Battle. It's just been checked. And they both had a good opportunity to get their wins. Tresean Gore, tons and tons of power. So when it comes to this fight, it really is interesting. You look at the odds. Gore open to minus 135 favorite. Minus 165 or thereabouts right now. For Bryan Battle, open to plus 115 is plus 135. If we look over on Tapology, I want to say this, Matt. I know when we put the vote out there for the Battle fight, when he's supposed to take on Urbina, there was so much hype for Tresean Gore in those comment sections. So I'm going to say over-under 73.5% Tresean Gore.
I think it'll be closer to 50-50.
I think it's going to be close. Look at that. 882 total votes, 61% Gore, 69% by knockout. For the 39% that have Battle, 47% by decision, 34% by submission, 9% by knockout. The last thing I want to say before I hand it over to you, both of these guys kick. They do not kick the same way. Tresean Gore whips that leg kick out there very fast, resets really quick before his opponent can really do anything. Battle plays a lot of the game of switching it up to all three levels. Throws a nice teep to the body. They are a little bit slower, and he does have to reset where he's got to do that beach glamour pose of a defense. But when it comes to this fight, both very skilled guys for being so early on in their pro careers.
Without a doubt. This is the way I look at this fight, and I guess I also have a question for you, so I'll give you one last chance. Do you think people are buying high on Tresean Gore just because he also beat Urbina? Like, they both had the same last win. It's just Gore did it slightly more impressively, but it was an injury ago, and that's what people forget. Not just time has passed since the last time we saw Tresean Gore, he also did sustain a knee injury, and I know it's not like the most serious thing in the world, because it's not like he had to wait a year, but still, it is something serious enough that he did miss time due to it. So, do you think people are looking at Tresean Gore and maybe buying him a little bit high as a prospect going into this matchup?
It really is hard to tell, and I mean, for Gore, and I know we're going to hear about it down below in the comment section, and please do let us know who you have in this fight. I just have a hard time in a fight like this where I've seen fights, whether it be regional, whether it be on The Ultimate Fighter, where it's a lot of waiting, and in that time, Battle's going to be able to score, and so is Battle going to be able to win the war of attrition, or is Tresean Gore going to be able to go in there and finish that fight? That really is the question here, I think.
I'm not trying to put a lot of stock into Gore's last knockout win, but I do think he's going to be able to finish Bryan Battle. I know that's a bit of a hot take because the odds are so close, but, and I know Craig hates it when I say this, speed kills. on the streets and in the cage. And it's true. Like, when Bryan Battle does everything, he is slow to rechamber a lot of his strikes, and he is slow to reset with some of his kicks. I do see Gore closing the distance at some point and at least landing a big shot. Now, will it knock him out? Will it drop him? That's all I really care about. Because if he can even drop Bryan Battle and slow down some of that output, I think it will really help Gore. I just look at Bryan Battle as he's either going to win this fight by 30-27 with his volume, and it'll be one of those games where he's throwing so many strikes that Gore can never really find his opportunity to land, but I think Gore's going to be able to find the in-between and at least land a big enough shot to change the outcome of the fight.
For me, I like Bryan Battle in this fight. I like the well-roundedness. That's the real key in this fight. For Gore, yes, can he outstrike Bryan Battle with his power? There's a good possibility. I mean, when you have power and you have speed, that's legendary. If you're a heavyweight with those two things, you win a title. You win a title. Francis Ngannou has those things, and now he has,
the wrestling of Khabib and the jiu-jitsu of Damian Maia.
He's a wild man, and I love it. But when I look at this fight, I do like Bryan Battle for the well-roundedness, the ability to go to all three different levels, and the fact that he is constantly doing something. If Tresean Gore, there's Tresean Gore fights that I love. There's Tresean Gore fights where he just pressures forward and bobs and does nothing. And in that time, I think Bryan Battle's going to be able to score. So for me, I like Battle in this fight. For you, you've got the uncrowned champion of this Ultimate Fighter season.
We got to figure out this weekend. Again, it would be great if they could give a little nod to him or something if he is able to win. They're like, oh, and kind of the winner of the Ultimate Fighter. It's too bad that he wasn't able to get the opportunity to fight for the title of the Ultimate Fighter winner, but it is nice that the UFC is giving him the opportunity to, at least for his own sake, kind of get the win back.
Well, maybe they'll send Mick Maynard into the cage to give Tresean Gore something. We'll have to see, but listen, we're split on this pick. I've got your champion, your Ultimate Fighter champion, Bryan Battle. Matt's going with the uncrowned champ, Tresean Gore. You let us know down below in the comment section who you have. Is it speed and power, which usually wins out fights, or is it the well-roundedness and the volume? We're going to have to see. I can't wait for this fight and the rest of them on this card. We have two more big-time fights at middleweight, co-main event, and main event that you're not going to want to miss. So keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.